So how is it that if she felt harmed in any way, she would have spoken about it?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. There's lots of things that.
So that should decide whether she was ready or not.
There's lots of things that probably happen to you in your life that are harmful, and you don't know the difference.
No, what I'm saying is, in terms of I would not agree with this point here. If she had a relation, if she was if she was married and she had any issues, any problems, she wasn't ready because this young age, she would have spoken about it.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm saying she would definitely have spoken about it.
I grant you that.
Yeah. So that's why we have positive remarks from her testimony, from her marital life with the Prophet. That is enough and sufficient for us to take and say the relationship that he has, whether she was ready or not. I don't have to go any beyond this at all. I was going to summarize it, but we keep on bringing back on this issue. In terms of the question that I was going to ask you, a lot of these issues revolve around our concept of God. What's your concept of God?
I don't really have one.
So do you have some kind of opinion about this reality and whether it was always there when it came about and where it came about, where you come from, where you're going?
Obviously, I have opinions that are based on science, and that's about it. Obviously, I can imagine what could have been. I think come up with.
So we're constantly learning from science.
Alternative hypotheses, but obviously, I couldn't say anything for certain.
So, from what you understand, how's our universe always been from scientific understanding of the different models they present?
Well, science can discuss the universe back to shortly after the Big Bang, and that's as far as it can say anything.
So it's actually a finite universe in that sense.
Scientists don't say whether it's finite or whether it's infinite. There's models that do both. No one knows which is the right model. It could be that the Big Bang is the beginning of everything that exists. It could be that the Big Bang is part of a greater continuum where there's these events happen quite a lot. I don't find anything logically wrong with that, or I don't see how you can imagine that's not the case. But we don't know.
So, in terms of these two, opposing understanding of our universe, the different models, how do you think the role of our creation or our existence in relation to this universe? Are we a product of our universe ourselves, or are we actually the creation of a creator who created this universe? How does that sound to you, that the science that you're familiar with? Does it tell you that yes, it's possible that we can come from a product of chance or unconscious existence?
So clearly science tells us that we came out of the product as a product of the universe. So you can call it random, you can say it's not purpose. I don't think it really matters. The universe has evolved in a certain way, and we are a part of that process. That's how we came about.
Is the universe
That being said, I don't think that requires you to be an atheist or anything, or not have a God belief. I don't see anything wrong with having a creator that created this process. I see nothing wrong.
What's your view? Is a creator involved or no creator?
I don't know.
Okay. So you're agnostic in either of the positions?
So my position as far as religion would be that I do believe religions themselves to be man-made, mostly, if not entirely. That doesn't stop one from believing that there might be a creator, that he might be personal, that he might instill us with some morals or guide us with morals. There's nothing that stops you from imposing it.
If you have an option of there might be a creator, then it's also possible from that option that the creator, as you said, may have guided people And if taking that possibility to its logical conclusion, if you have a position where there is no creator, then this has one conclusion to follow from it. If you have a possibility of another option where there is a creator, and this creator this creator created this universe, then it's logical to explore that this creator may have given reasons why he's created, may have shown guidance of how to live our life, may have given purpose of our life and how to follow this purpose. That means then religion entirely cannot be said, from your position, is entirely man-made. As you said, you don't say entirely man-made, but maybe some of them, maybe most of them.
Well, let's put it this way.
Not all of them.
I don't claim to be talking to God or have had any revelations or anything like this. Yet, through a purely secular means, you could come up with some of the same types of morality. And in fact, people have. There's been plenty of secular philosophy done on morality done over the last couple of thousand years. It's not strange at all.
So morality can be, something that has been accepted in a particular society, and it can change because morality is based on the social conditioning of the people. Today, you might consider yourself human sacrifice is unacceptable, but at one point, the same humans considered it to be a praiseworthy action. The Aztecs did it. It was praiseworthy. It's a noble act to actually sacrifice your own life for the rain to happen by this God who will be pleased with your own sacrifice.
That's right.
Yeah. So in this kind of understanding, the morality can be subjective, and which it is, and can be relative to particular social historical context.
Yeah, I want to clarify. I mean, morality is based on learning. I mean, part of it is a certain learning of how societies work. Clearly there was a lot more killing that went on in the streets in the earlier days than there is now. Why is that? Well, I don't think it's because of divine revelation. I think it's a matter of people saying this killing is really killing. So how can we stop this? How can we can all envision. I don't think one needs to be religious to envision like a utopia. What's the best kind of society we want to live in? And I think those kind of things are. There's some things that are subjective, and there's a lot more that's common. Not killing each other, not stealing from each other, respecting each other. These are things we can kind of agree on these because it makes our life more pleasant.
But this is how we're trying to accept some of these moral values. It wasn't always the case.
That's right.
Yeah, it was. So we, as you say, in your process of
it's a bit
accepting
of
morality
of recognizing that these principles are there, and that if you would just espouse a few of them, you could make a better society. So people hadn't done it.
Yeah. So in Islam, the principles are such that Allah, the Creator, tells us He has created us and instilled within us the two sets of values, understanding the good and the bad. He's shown us the both ways, the good way and the bad way. Successful is the one who purifies it, makes it better, and the loser is the one who actually goes against it and takes the wrong path. So if you look at it now, this is our makeup, the human makeup, that we have this understanding of what is good or bad, and God sends prophets and messengers to remind us and give us this guidance to follow strictly this guidance, this value system where you can live in a society harmoniously in a way that you prosper and you flourish and you become a better person. You develop yourself. So that's why as a Muslim, it's a constant struggle of a Muslim's life to make themselves better, become a better person. Always from the beginning of their life until they die, to constantly make themselves better. We're not perfect, but we try to reach perfection, which we'll never reach, but this is the goal. And we're not requested or demanded of to be perfect, but we have to strive to make ourselves to that level of state of being where we are a better person. We're individuals who are the most noble, and so on and so forth. And that's why Prophet Muhammad, he said one of the reasons why he was raised was to perfect the nobility character. So you can see underlying this is an assumption that people actually are noble, but he's come here to perfect it, to give the perfection to this character. So the desires that we may have, which will make it impure, which will make it less than perfect, that will be cleansed, that will be shown that it's not right, and then uplifted to a point where you become a very noble person. So people have within themselves this idea of greed, this feelings of greed. But Islam says no, you need to control it. And there are lots of different mechanisms of controlling your greed and to show selflessness, selfishness, where you go and be a person of compassion, mercy and kindness and justice and generosity, where you control this feeling. And that is where what we are actually, one of the purpose of this life is to show where and how we can balance the way we are created in our weaknesses and follow the guidance that we are supposed to follow. If we did that, then awaits for us is another life of eternal joy, happiness, bliss, and what you call total bliss and enjoyment. But if you don't follow it and you totally corrupt yourself to at the point where you make yourself destined by your own belief and actions to go to a place of eternal torture and misery and suffering. So we have this balance in this life where we have to work towards something that is better. So in Islam, this belief that we have is something that you will see that our heart and mind agrees to. That yes, we want to live forever. We want to be happy forever. We want to be, the best enjoyment and so on. But we can't achieve it in this life. We can achieve it in another life. We have to also control ourselves to help our ego to make it restrained so that it doesn't interfere with the goodness of other people. It doesn't harm others. It doesn't oppress others. It doesn't commit injustice. So if you think about these principles, you would agree with this principle already, even as a secular individual.
I was just going to say, I wonder why there's so much fighting about religious dogma. Because I was listening to what you said and I was thinking, it's funny, there wasn't a single thing that I would have disagreed with. Similar, I would say, and you would agree, that there's plenty of discussion around similar topics in other books, philosophies, speeches, whatever, outside of Islam. The only thing I didn't agree with, obviously, was the heaven and hell part, which doesn't
if you consider in our particular belief system where justice is paramount, so there are people here in this life, they live their life, their justice being violated by other individuals, and those other individuals may be like drug lords and kings and whatever. They live their life and they get away with this injustice. Get away with the injustice. And the person who has been suffering these things, they die and they don't see the justice done. Okay? Even the concept of justice demands that they don't get away, these wicked people don't get away, and the people who are injustice done towards, they're actually seeing the justice meted out to the people, and for them what injustice have been done, that's been rectified. So the day of judgment, what we say, is a necessity from the demands of justice itself. We believe in it, but it can be justifiable even from the concept of justice alone.
Do you think that, I'm just going to put this out there, do you think that kind of concept of justice, is that subjective on your part or is that real?
But this is what we accept.
The desire to have someone else punished for doing you wrong.
The desire to have justice implemented is something that is ingrained within us. Yeah. This justice, even a 3-year-old, if you snatch something from them, a toy or something, they'll say, "Give it to me back." They'll start crying. Yeah, it's something inbuilt. The sense, that you will say human, but we as Muslims say this is already given by God. The understanding, the notion of justice, that we appreciate and we understand what it is, so that we don't violate this justice. It's very important. We are told in the Quran, very, strictly, you have to stand forth as true witnesses, just witnesses, even if it goes against you, your own family, your kith and kin. This is how important and how paramount Islam considers the concept of justice. Even if it goes against you, doesn't matter. You have to speak and bear witness in truth. A true witness, a true justice, a just person. So the Prophet ﷺ, I'm sure it was quite well known, this statement, he said, even if Fatima, my daughter, was to steal, if she were to steal, of course she doesn't, then her hands should be chopped off, meaning no nepotism, no favoritism. Justice has to be meted out, not because someone is poor and you mete the justice out, and when someone is rich, as we see today in many cultures and many nations and many countries. If you are very powerful, and if you're very rich, and in a position of authority, you just get away from the eyes of the hands of the law.
Let me ask you this. Do you think we could come up with a better system of justice for theft than chopping someone's hands off? Is there a better way to remedy the situation? So
Personally, no.
You've stolen.
Personally,
someone else has been stolen.
I'll tell you why. Personally, Islam is a holistic system. The system that it presents, you can call it the model of crime and punishment. This is what we say, you can't find a better system than that. Yeah, you can have many alternatives, and you can see and you can implement those, and you see which one. Because the principle of Islam is based on this issue, on what? Prevention is better than cure. And because of this principle, you will have certain punishments impeded out on certain crimes with an intention or motives of deterrent as well, a deterrent aspect. It tries to deter individuals to commit this action when everything is provided for. You don't need to, for example, if you are provided the means to sustain your life, to live your life and your family with nothing of reason for you to steal, why would you steal unless something wrong with you? Then you need to be educated. If you have no means to, if you have no reasons to steal, you're a rich person, why would you steal a bread? You have the money to pay for it, for example. What's wrong then if you're stealing a bread? There's something wrong. It's not your poverty. Something clearly not right. So Islam looks at all of these aspects and says, look, there has to be an education system where it imparts this knowledge and understanding from the very young age, where don't steal someone's bread when you don't have to.
This brings me to the point I was saying. It's like, do you think this is the best system? And you touched
personally,
on
yes.
A few things is why I would. I agree with most of the stuff you said about earlier. This is where we're starting to diverge.
It's only when you look at it holistically.
You said, would a rich person steal?
No, would a rich person steal a bread, a piece of loaf?
Well, it doesn't matter.
No. Rich people steal a whole company,
how about this?
A whole
right,
half a country.
Let's forget that. Shoplifting, something petty theft.
Yeah.
Would a rich person commit petty theft?
Yeah. Why would they do
The
that?
answer
Some people
is
do.
yes.
Yes, some people do.
All the time.
Why?
They're fucked up in the head. That's why.
Just to use our language,
sorry,
control way. Because of the cameras, people are listening. Young people may be listening. Okay, we're having a very nice discussion.
They're not well.
Okay, so the rich people are not very well. In here, something's wrong with their psyche. So Islam deals with these people as well from the very beginning.
Yeah,
it stops people from
chopping of hands. I just don't. I don't think that's a good cure for mental imbalance.
No. This is an aspect of deterrence, right? A major aspect. When you have, you have to just look into practice. When Islam was implemented properly at that time with holistic laws, how many hands were chopped off? Not even a handful. Mind my pun. Not even a handful. Why? Because it made people, developed people, it improved people's understanding, their thinking, their thought processes, their emotional upbringing, and their physical upbringing, their intellectual upbringing.
So it's an interesting point you bring up.
Because that's something that needs to be looked at.
We could solve this. I don't know what countries are still chopping people's hands off for theft.
No country is implementing Islam in its entirety, so we can't really give an example from today.
It would be interesting to compare, say, maybe a Western country.
But we can't.
Incidents of theft with.
You can, but it's not going to do proper justice. Why? Because the countries which are implementing this, punishment of chopping of the hands, are they totally, holistically implementing everything else of Islam? You can't half implement Islam and expect that everything works together. That would be a major problem. But when it was implemented, that's the point we should go to. When, at the time of Islamic Golden Age, there were a long period of Golden Age in the early Islamic history, how many hands have chopped off and why? What was happening within the individuals in the Muslim society where the rich weren't stealing, shoplifting, for example? What was it within them?
To be honest, to be fair, it's conjecture on what.
Not conjectural, this is something that you can study yourself. Islamic history. Islamic history, when it was implemented within, say, first, 700 years. Let's give that broad period. Why was it that this amount of punishment wasn't actually carried out to that number that we think every second person or third person they're going to get their hands chopped off, but it didn't happen.
Let's go with this. I mean, I could kind of see where you're going with this. If we wanted to prevent theft, if that was our goal, we would cut people's hands off. No. Sorry?
If we want to stop a crime like theft happening, then we have to have laws to deal with it. Now we need to determine what crime it is. In fact, I gave an example which is not even appropriate. Why? Stealing a loaf of bread will never, in an Islamic jurisprudence, get a penalty of cutting off hands. Why? It needs to be of a certain value, not value of a loaf. It needs to be something valuable. It needs to be protected. It needs to be hidden away and secure.
Right. Yeah, we're going to a different area, which we didn't touch on before.
Yeah, but that's the condition, though. That's the condition.
There are certain extreme forms of punishment for extreme crimes.
Yes. So what we're saying is...
still debate, how about capital punishment?
How many capital punishments are there in Islam? In Islamic law?
Oh, it's not. I'm just saying in general.
No, in Islamic law, how many are there?
There's tons in the States. I'm just saying...
No, in Islamic law, there are about 5 or 6 of capital punishment crimes. Only out of zillions of possible crimes.
Does that include Saudi Arabia?
No, I'm not talking about any country. I'm talking about from Islamic law, which is the basis of implementing a law in any Muslim country. So whether Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or Iran or whichever country it is, doesn't matter. If you're going to implement Islamic law, the Islamic law comes from the Quran and the prophetic teaching, and the understanding and the consensus of the Prophet's companions and then the students. And then there's an analogical deduction, what we call qiyas. So I've given you 4 sources of Islamic law already. Now, what we're saying is the crime and the punishment must go hand in hand. You can't punish with a chopping of hands with stealing a loaf of bread or a lollipop. Why? It doesn't have these conditions met. The conditions are quite strict. The strict is it needs to be hidden away and secured away. That means the person who is actually stealing, he is really someone not like a normal person who's trying to steal by breaking their lock or something, who has no need of lots of these things.
You didn't say that before.
I thought you knew.
When I brought up the issue of the rich person who...
Sorry, I thought you knew. Sorry, I assumed you knew because when we were discussing this...
They should get their hands...
No. My apologies. I thought you understood
that
already.
That was my thing. There's a different approach to, justice and mercy have to be weighed in a certain way, and it's not easy to achieve both.
Taking someone's life away for getting capital punishment is not something like a trivial matter.
No, it's not.
It's a trivial matter. So that's why this serious matter means the crime that they've committed is serious equally. Yeah. So if you look at the crimes that carries out this capital punishment, is actually something to do with this very, very grievous in the eyes of Islam. For example, highway robbery, where it's not stealing. Someone comes along in broad daylight and commits the theft and murder at the same time, where your whole life is unsecure. You cannot even live your life in public daylight where you're threatened for your security. These kind of crimes cannot be just £10 fine or 1 year imprisonment.
No, right.
Islam considers these are crime against society, where they need to have a very strict and harsh punishment to show to the individual that this is what will happen to you, as well as to the others who may be even thinking of doing that because of their, unwell mind. Let's put it that way, as we said. Not right.
The unwell mind is obviously all cases wouldn't be this way, but I'm talking about, a bit of a, an impulse that you can't resist.
Some people,
cases,
for example...
The cases are, what do you do with a person who can't resist their impulse?
So if you look at it now, there are a lot of people who have this impulses of raping. They want to rape. They want to rape women who are not their wife or their girlfriend. They just want to rape. Okay, this impulse they have. Maybe they're psychopaths, or maybe they're conditions from the very young age of watching, all these movies or whatever, encouraging them to go about and actually trying it out and saying, even though person is not consenting, because rape is without consent, right? This is relationship without consent. Even though they're not consenting, they want to actually overpower this woman and to fulfill their desires. Now, how do we deal with these people? This conditioning didn't happen overnight. This is the Islamic understanding. These kind of mindset didn't happen just overnight, just like that. There may be few individuals who are actually psychopaths, where they will be trained and rehabilitated differently. They will be dealt with differently. But people at large, when you are coming up with this kind of impulses to carry out your impulse and forcibly enjoy yourself on others, these impulses, Islam considers, have been developed in a process of time, of conditioning by the society, the environment, lots of different factors. When we say environmental factors, it could be that the people they're hanging around with, bad influence. It could be they're watching the media, whether it's the internet or whether it's the TV or it's the movies in cinemas, where they're somehow seeing people are getting away with it. People are forcing each other, and it gives them this adrenaline rush. Maybe I can get away with it as well. In Islam, this kind of encouragement are prevented. We don't show open licentiousness, if I can use this word, I can't remember how it's pronounced, where, this open kind of thing about sexuality and sexual perversion or sexual immoralities, let's call it that way. There are certain sexual moral behavior and there are sexual immoral behavior. Islam doesn't even encourage this happening in society in any form, whether it's in school, college, university, workplace, whether it's the shop that you go to, the newspaper you read, the movie you see. It doesn't encourage that. So it tries to prevent this kind of thing happening and educates at the same time, so that the individual is brought up in an understanding where no, you have no right and no business to overpower someone without their consent and their will, except when they're mutually agreeing in a form of marriage, for example.
Now, you know where I'm going to go with this. It seems that... Just tell me what you think. So obviously there's been a number... I think Sweden is one place where they're saying the Islamic community is raping a lot of the
Islamic community, sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Is responsible for a lot of the rapes that are occurring in Sweden.
Okay. So, since Islam doesn't encourage them...
So it would seem...
Are they following Islam?
No, I don't
First
know.
question you'd be asking.
Yeah, I don't know.
First question you'd be asking. If Islam, it says, if you were to rape someone, you should be stoned to death. Obviously, these people are not even listening to that. Yeah. So it is not a problem of Islam. It's a problem of their Islamic understanding and application of Islam.
Well, I mean,
if they were doing it, assuming this is
I bring it up because you were talking about, Islam says that rapists tend to come out of their own culture, and it's reinforced by what they're taught in their culture. And I'm like, well,
but where are they learning?
These guys are in an Islamic culture when they're going out and raping. That doesn't seem to be.
When you say Sweden, is open pornography available everywhere in Sweden? Maybe there is. Maybe it is. Maybe they're conditioned by this openness of sexual immorality in our understanding. And that is somehow conditioned them.
They have that problem, and they have the same access to the porn. It seems that it's. I don't have figures on this.
I don't know these figures anyway. But
exactly.
Talking from assumptions.
The way the media is reporting it, I will say that there must be some credit.
I would say. We need to look at.
The Swedes are not doing it, and the Muslims are given the same access to the same pornography.
But obviously, clearly, it's not a Muslim problem, or it's not an Islamic problem. It's a problem of certain individuals who are not applying Islam to them. And the question should be asked is, why aren't they applying Islam to them? What is conditioning them not to apply Islam to them when they are Muslims?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, but you're kind of just And then
I'm not brushing it aside. I'm simply saying Islam is not the problem. Muslim who are not applying the application of Islam on them.
You're telling me if you don't apply moral principles to your life, then you don't act morally. And we can all say that. It doesn't seem that Islam is...
But that cannot be a counterexample, though. I mean, when you use this as a counterexample...
No, I was just saying that, I don't know, you kind of made it seem like Islam is giving something special that...
No, what we're saying is...
some special teaching that the rest of us can't give, and that's why, you know...
Islam gives teaching which is far-reaching for everyone to even see and compare, accept, or do whatever your society wants to do. This is your society, but Islamic society has a particular framework, and based on that framework, the society should flourish. And at that point, it did. The point Islamic society came into decline is an interesting point to study. Why did Islamic society decline at one point when it was the peak of civilization? We well know that at one point Islamic society were peak of civilization, where the East and the West, they were all going to that society to learn, to develop, to progress. They were declining for various factors. One of the important factors is their linking with Islam was getting broader and broader, meaning what? They were moving away from Islam and the application of Islam. So the desires overcame many of them. The rulers became corrupt, they corrupted the people. The people became corrupt, they corrupted the ruler. So you had a vicious circle of this corruption and non-application of Islam, and eventually it came to a point where it will crumble, and it did crumble. It's a very crude way of portraying the decline of the Islamic society, but this was one of the major points in the decline, where they were removing away from the Islamic teaching, Islamic ethos, Islamic application of its values, and that's why it declined. When it was applied, prosperity, whether you were Muslim or non-Muslim in an Islamic state, everyone was prospering. The Jewish people were prospering, the Christian people were prospering. They were in higher status in the administration and so on. That happened because the holistic application was there. Today, we don't see this kind of thing happening because Islam is not applied holistically. That's the problem. Holistic application. For example, if you give your child all the money, says don't steal, and then he goes to a gang culture and says stealing gives you power and dominance. Like if I were to rob someone by force and so on, it makes me a very...
Call it juice, innit?
I don't even know, yeah? So it's not because of his stealing of property, it's because of something else.
Stealing for power.
For power. So that's what. So we need to impart this teaching and this understanding to our youngsters as they grow up. Because we're not doing this enough, sufficient enough, and that's why people are growing up with minds which are, as you will say, messed up.
Ken's a good lad, though.
Anyway, it's been nice talking to you. We'll talk again. What's your name?
Ken.
Ken,
Yeah.
It's a pleasure speaking to you, and we can talk again. And look into Islam, and especially on this issue about Islamic crime and punishment, and the conditions that are needed. And then you can see, because your concept of God, you're agnostic to it, but if there was a God, you would expect the God to be just and fair. And this is where you can link that. Okay?
All right.
Take care again.